Developed and published by Supermassive Games, Directive 8020 is the 5th game in the Dark Pictures anthology following The Devil in Me. It was meant to be the first game in the anthology's 2nd season, but during development they decided to move away from the season format to focus on the game as a standalone title, but still in the Dark Pictures universe. Before I go further, please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead, so watch at your own risk. Also, note that due to Supermassive's branching narrative based on choices made throughout the story that will be told is based on my first playthrough with everyone dying. So without further ado, let's get into the lore behind Directive 8020. It's 2073. Earth is dying and humanity's only hope of survival is the planet Tau Ceti F. The game opens inside the podroom with British astronaut and pilot of the Cassiopeia Brianna Young getting scanned. Why is she being scanned? We will come back to that. But while the crew is in hypersleep, sleep technicians Thomas Carter, who's a Canadian astronaut, and Parry Sims, who's also a British astronaut, witness a blast impact hitting the Cassiopeia ship. Carter checks on Sims, but she's unfazed by such a thing like it's a regular occurrence. They check the Oracle and are told there's a breach on Deck 2 in the medical complex. Carter finds that area of impact odd since it's locked down and sealed with no one getting in or out. Sims suggests waking up the rest of the crew, but Carter doesn't see the point since they're only 3 days from orbit and would rather assess the damage themselves. Sims suggests consulting the Oracle and Carter agrees. They consult the Oracle and are told a meteorite hit the ship, penetrating through 2 deck levels. They volunteer to make repairs, and upon investigating in the medical area, Carter finds the area of impact. They head out to the exterior of the ship to assess the damage when Carter checks the message logs and discovers a message from his wife and daughter Luna, who are encouraging him and wishing him nothing but the best on his mission. They assess the damage and Carter puts it perfectly.
What a mess.
Carter spots something peculiar among the ship's pipe, but Sims chalks it down to coolant leaking. Little did they know, this would be the beginning of the end. The hull breach is sealed, but as they make it back to the airlock, Sims is launched into space. She makes her way back and Carter gets a hold of her, catching her. Back at the airlock, Sims and Carter are doing some maintenance work and having a conversation when all of a sudden, the comms line is cut off. Carter finds Sims, but her appearance has changed. She has a hoodie now, giving the illusion of bad. Carter checks in on her, but when she turns around, she's ready for violence with a shock stick in her hand. Carter manages to escape her, but she makes her way over and shows up in front of him. Carter locks himself inside crew complex, but she finds another way around. He escapes her once again, locking himself in his room and recorded a warning for the rest of the crew before his unfortunate death. We now go back 2 days before the Cassiopeia launched, and there's a bit of timeline whiplashing during the game, so bear with me here. Young meets with American astronaut and captain of the Cassiopeia, Nolan Stafford, and since Brianna's father passed, with him personally asking Nolan to look after his daughter Brianna, he's another father figure to her. Back to present day, 4 years after launch, Young wakes up from hypersleep to being assessed by Dutch astronaut and Stafford's second in command, Laura Isley. The crew have woken up to the crash that was witnessed by Carter and Sims, which was repaired, but since what we saw and comms have been cut off, Stafford can't reach them and they're trying to figure out what happened. After finally getting in contact with Sims, even though it's not really her, Stafford engages in normal conversation with her, not thinking anything of it, along with Young. Sims is seen standing at an electrical box, putting the cover back on. Another crew member, American astronaut and co-pilot Noah Mitchell, awakens from hypersleep and he goes for a walk with Stafford, with Sims lurking behind. Stafford is asked by Mitchell what he thinks of last-minute Australian astronaut and science officer Zoe Anders. Stafford trusts the recruitment process, and with American astronaut and science specialist Samantha Cooper's approval, he doesn't see an issue with it. Young and Isley head into the reactor room to power it up, with Young deactivating fire control. Young and Isley meet up with Stafford and Mitchell, while Isley and Stafford talk about the hawthorn tree Isley added into the ship, and while it has its benefits, it's a reminder of home to her. The robot cleaner enters a room and we can see the growth rapidly expanding when the robot is destroyed. Isley goes through security camera footage from the time of when Sims and Carter were meant to be fixing things, and she notices some strange happenings. A glitched camera, Sims being weird.
Sorry, Commander. Sorry, Commander, there's just too much. Sorry, Commander, there's just too much interference down there.
another glitch camera, Sims staring at someone sleeping for 4 hours, and her jump scaring the camera. Stafford startles her before she brings up what she saw until he chalks it down to glitches in the system. Isley takes a bit of a gander at the crew quarters to investigate more into Carter and Sims, and she hacks into Carter's computer, but it doesn't let her in until she spots Sims. She follows Sims to the terminal where Sims tampers with it before Isley fixes up whatever was tampered with, but then she catches up to Sims where she attempts to end her life. Isley gets away safely and finds herself in the electrical room Sims was in earlier, and Carter's mangled body drops out. We now fast forward 22 hours where Turkey's astronaut and tech engineer Joseph Kernan is chased by a mimic of Williams, and after getting power to the control room door, he escapes successfully. Back to present time, Young and Isley get Carter inside the pod before examining him and learning his utility strap is missing and other awful, disturbing things. Stafford begins to question himself on how he got Sims so wrong, further wondering if their training went well, but it did. Both of them. The crew attempt to land on Ceti, but with the growth rapidly expanding among the ship, it shorted the electricity, giving them no control over the engine. Young flies the ship in with the reaction control system, but while they're flying, the landing computer is offline because of earlier. However, Stafford goes to bring it online again and successfully reboots the computer and makes it back to his chair safely before the ship crash lands on Ceti with everyone surviving. 30 minutes post-crash landing, Kernan wakes up from hypersleep to being assessed by Cooper, who both have no idea what's going on and realizes Carter is deceased. They also realize they have gravity and are confused on why. They also can't leave the room since the breach seals are locked them in there. Kernan tries for Stafford on comms but gets no response. Cooper decides to wake up Williams, but because his body isn't reacting well to hypersleep, he goes into a seizure upon waking up, before Cooper injects him with something to stabilize him with unfortunate side effects. Kernan and Cooper go through the maintenance tunnels to fetch a tool to unlock the sealed doors. Isley makes an appearance and fills the rest of the crew in on what's happened so far, which Williams isn't too happy about. Back in the ship's control room post-landing, Mitchell is in disbelief at how this could have happened since he did everything right, with Young backing him up. But Stafford doesn't place blame on either of them, instead places it on Sims. And then, Kernan comes in on comms on Stafford's end and he doesn't test to make sure they can hear each other, but rather assumes he can and starts having a conversation with him like Kernan can hear him. Anders, Williams, Kernan and Cooper arrive on the crew deck to find out why Sims was there. They split up with Anders going with Cooper, and another message is displayed from Carter's wife and daughter, Luna, and they really miss Carter. The daughter discovered Carter can't talk back and refuses to talk as much since the discovery. Cooper hears a messenger ping nearby and discovers Carter's utility strap with the warning message before his tragic passing. They regroup with the boys and get to the room that's glitching and discover the growth. Anders refuses to allow them in there because it goes against everything she knows and stands for scientifically, but Williams, seen as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, wants a sample. Cooper sides with Anders, but Kernan sides with Williams, leaving it as a 2v2. However, Williams uses his power to make the decision in his favor, leading to Cooper collecting a sample. 18 hours later, Cooper and Anders run into the Williams mimic, but Cooper is caught and injured. However, they still manage to make it out. Going back to present time, a meeting is formed and first, they acknowledge Carter's passing, giving him the honoring he deserves, before getting into the damage assessment of the ship. It's not in a great state. They begin discussing the growth and its origins, getting to the point that Stafford and Isley authorize the use of a gun to be used since they have evidence of Sims' strange behavior. A plan is formed and Young volunteers to be the bait. Stafford and Williams meet, with Williams terraforming the land and visualizing what the planet could turn into. Williams expresses confidence in Stafford for getting the job done. Young goes through the vents so they can seal it off to trap the entity, but she discovers Sims' body in the last shutter. She decides to be brave and continue on before coming face to face with an unknown entity. Young is attacked from behind and caught while trying to sneak past, resulting in her eye being drilled. They notice the meteorite lodged in the ship with the organism growing out of it. 17 hours later, Isley attempts to escape the Stafford mimic, but is caught. Back to present time, Young is patched up, and while going through the lack of security measures among the ship, Williams expresses his desire to take a sample of the organism home, which Anders is completely against, but Williams is so stunned by the discovery that he feels the need to, and again uses his power for it. They analyze the sample and get some shocking results.
Its cellular structure is changing almost constantly. It's highly efficient, appearing to absorb matter in its immediate proximity and duplicate it. It's copying whatever it touches.
Anders comes up with an idea, but she needs a sedative first. What evil shit could she be up to? Anyway, Cooper makes a sedative, and after returning to Anders, she reveals she's suspicious of Williams since he wasn't freaked out by the discovery of the growth and wonders if there's something larger at play here. When asked how she knows this, it's revealed Anders hacked into his drop drive and discovers that Williams has his own heavily encrypted file stack inside the Oracle, even having the ability to talk to Earth through a line that's hidden from everyone else, including the commanders of this ship. They do some more analyzing once Isley shows up, and because it continues to expand no matter what they do to it, Anders wants to try freezing it to stop the expansion with liquid oxygen. Williams talks to the Oracle privately and tells her to prepare the compound for a planetary launch, before Anders comes in to give Williams the coffee with a sedative inside it. Mitchell transfers the liquid oxygen to the science experiment room, which sees the growth slow down until an unknown figure shows up outside the door of the room Anders is in and locks her in until the growth explodes along with the fuel pipes, resulting in liquid oxygen leaking and freezing up the room and fire surrounding Mitchell. Young is informed of a fire where Mitchell is, and before a choice is made, Young and the crew see a Williams mimic in the room where Mitchell is and are wondering why he's in there. Young makes a choice and saves Anders, which results in Williams being burned alive along with Mitchell getting the same outcome. Cooper and Anders reunite and process what just happened, with Anders in disbelief since she just wanted to knock him out. Anders also reveals she copied Williams' drive but has yet to decrypt the files and find the truth. Colonel reunites with the rest of the crew and is just as confused as them to see Williams sitting there after seeing him burn alive. After some questioning, Williams is suspicious and confused as to what's going on. Amongst the crew being suspicious of Williams, they organize for him to be scanned to make sure he's real. But then, some racket in the hydroponics area is detected, and on the CCTV, there are a bunch of mimics walking in, along with the appearance of Sims. However, the CO2 scrubbers, which is their reason for being able to breathe infinitely, is disrupted, and there won't be enough to last until the end of the day, with everyone up, so Stafford volunteers to sort the issue, with Isley allocating Conan as Stafford's support. We now go back again, 2 days before launch, with Stafford encouraging Young to be a part of the mission. Back to present day, Stafford and Conan get into hydroponics and see the growth all over the place, which is the cause for the CO2 scrubbers issue. But then, a mysterious shadow appears, holding a weapon. It's a mimic of Stafford. A mimic of Conan then appears shortly after. Stafford takes a shot at his mimic, but it dodges the bullet, resulting in it going into the screen and damaging the system. Conan fights himself, but ends up losing before it transforms into the terrifying alien creature. Conan escapes, and while Stafford takes care of his mimic, he also takes care of Conan's. They reunite when suddenly Stafford's mimic rises from the dead, regenerating its tissue, which causes the boys to dip and head into the scanning room. They attempt to convince the crew it's not really Williams because of everything that's happened. Williams is in disbelief with what's really happening when Stafford aims the gun at him, but ends up standing down before the scan finishes, and it's revealed it's actually him. But the scan also revealed he was sedated, which he was not happy about. He discovers it was Anders and scolds her for it. All of a sudden, the alarm goes off with an intruder alert, and they head towards bridge ops so they can be scanned, since there's massive trust issues going on right now. Young, Cooper, Anders and Conan run together until the monster splits them up, and now we're back once again to present time with their situations from earlier. Conan escapes, Isley narrowly escapes, and Cooper continues bleeding. They reunite until they see Stafford, and he doesn't trust any of them. They head towards bridge ops, and everyone goes through the scanner just fine until it's Isley's turn when a mimic of her shows up. Stafford orders both of them through the scanner, but the mimic ends up taking care of Isley, which Stafford ends up taking care of with the crew getting inside. The monster tries getting in, but stops after a couple attempts. Stafford heads upstairs towards the cockpit out of frustration when Young meets him in there, and he accepts defeat with everything that's happening, but Young pulls him back in. But then, Anders makes an appearance with an injured Cooper who unfortunately passes away from blood loss. Young stares out the window, and shortly after, a drone named Charybdis shows up. It's revealed that the Charybdis mission consisted of 20 landing probes with their own drone recon unit and long-range FTL transmitter, and the Cassiopeia was meant to fly over each of the probes and collect the data from it. However, the odds of crash landing within the range of one is going to take a miracle. Then Anders comes up with the idea of sending an SOS to the Andromeda if they can follow the drone, but they need oxygen to live through seeing the Andromeda arrive, which is 6 months away. Before they can get started though, the Directive 8020 is displayed. It states that the Earth must be protected from extraterrestrial matter carried by a spacecraft returning from another planet. So if they choose to send a distress call, it would break protocol because it would expose the Andromeda to the organism, therefore infecting them. But if they choose to send a warning, they can get what they need and get out. Stafford orders them to send the warning. Going back 2 days before launch again, Young is hesitant to sign something, but Stafford does his best to convince her to. Back to present day, the crew prepare to head out to follow Charybdis, but after Anders climbs up, electricity begins to spark, which causes a lightning strike, leading to a rock falling, splitting the crew from Anders. On their way to finding Anders, Young saves Conan from almost being crushed to death, with Anders coming in on comms. They find Anders, but it's a weird interaction. Nonetheless, they reach the probe, and after replacing the damaged ship, Young sends a warning to the Andromeda. However, after the message sends, the previous ones load. They go back as far as 2068, but going through each one is the original Young and Anders sending both warnings and distress calls to the Andromeda. Young discovers the body of her original self. They then discover ships belonging to them, but they're confused because they believe they're the first to land on the planet, until Young fills them in on what happened. They head back inside to the growth, fully submerging the Cassiopeia, and realize they have to go through it. Young forces a door open to get in, but the door closes behind her, locking the others out, forcing them to find another way around. Young manages to escape the horrors of the growth, while Conan makes his way around and heads into geoscience, where he's interrupted by an alien life form who he unfortunately loses his life to. Young returns to Bridge Ops alone and is informed of a message received from Earth. It's the original Young, and she reveals the truth that the government have known what's on the planet since Charybdis sent back its first report. They just chose to keep it a secret and told Corinth to carry on with the mission as planned. Everyone went through training not knowing what they were really preparing for. The cloning process happened when their original bodies got into the sleeping pods. Their personalities and memories would be copied and uploaded to synthetic bodies, further revealing that the crew we're seeing now are all clones. And all this talk about the Andromeda ship following behind them doesn't exist. There will always be another Cassiopeia following behind, and another after that to keep the process going until they can fully learn and understand the life form's behaviors and how it reacts to humans. But even though they're part of an experiment, this isn't non-consensual because they all signed off on being cloned once they learned what was happening, and because of all that, the humans are winning the war. But then Williams pipes up, revealing he knew the truth the whole time and kept quiet, that it was the original Williams' idea. We now go back to launch day, where the crew are in the ship and getting their memories and personalities uploaded. However, Young wakes up to a government agent leading the original crew into the room where the original Williams is, where he reveals the truth. 18 hours after learning the truth, we learn the thing Stafford was convincing Young to sign was a cloning agreement. Young makes a wish and chooses humanity over survival. Back to present day, the original Young sees why Corinth is doing what they're doing, but is not a fan of the secrecy behind it. The Oracle chimes in and pretty much tells them, you're not going to survive, so good luck. 30 minutes after the big reveal, Young sees the booster ring and wants to head towards it. Williams thinks they're doing too much and wants to stay, but Stafford orders him to go with them. They get to the transport vehicle inside the ship, but it has no fuel, and they have to manually redirect the fuel. Young volunteers to go, with Stafford tagging along. The elevator they're on malfunctions, which forces them to get off, and to fix it, they need to purge the unknown substance that's been detected. Stafford, making his way, encounters an Isley mimic. Getting through her, Stafford makes it out, but Young is locked out. Making her way through, a monster jumps out at her and she unfortunately doesn't survive. Stafford reaches the server room and purges the elevator network. He heads back to the elevator and heads towards Fuel Junction, redirecting the fuel before heading to engineering. Making his way through, he attempts to open another door when it's opened by the evolved entity, where a chase ensues. Whilst being chased, he heads into the reactor room and overloads it. He heads back to the hangar, but the door is stuck. The monster makes an appearance and another chase ensues, but unfortunately he doesn't survive. As the ship launches with Williams inside, the ship is destroyed along with Williams. The game ends with showing the next set of clones set on the mission the last set of clones were on 3 months later. In the post credits, the original Isley makes a note about Cycle 13 that the life form managed to intercept the ship from outside orbit, also making a note of the warning message that Young sends, made a wish for, and the status of the crew members. She reports to her superiors on her findings and suggests to shut down the clone program. With the main story done, let's get into some things that happened during the story and figure out why the things that happened. Williams was born in California to great wealth, and growing up, he witnessed the mission to Mars that was carried out by Stafford and Brianna's father, Bill Young. Getting inspired seeing it, Williams wanted to cement his own legacy, and so with him being a billionaire, he did. The company Corinth Industries attempted their own space mission to colonize Mars, but failed. So Williams bought the company to conduct his own missions and experiment on the planet Tau Ceti F to see if it's inhabitable and learn of what life forms live among the planets. Founded before or during the 1940s, Corinth Automobile Company, or Corinth Industries as we know it to be now, started off building cars, mainly vehicles for the US Army, which can be seen in the Orang Medan in Man of Medan. The company then took an interest in space exploration, so during the 21st century, they financed a mission to send astronauts to attempt to colonize Mars, seen as it wasn't in good shape, but it failed. And that's when they went under new leadership, LaMarcus Williams, where he'd continue their mission and wanted to see if the planet Tau Ceti F was inhabitable since again, Earth was dying. So that's when they sent Charybdis to survey the planet and discovered the hostile alien species. And of course, following the discovery, a branch of the government got involved, AEGIS. They supplied Corinth with alien technology they gathered from another life form in a prior mission decades back. And so, AEGIS proposed to send people to Tau Ceti F to gather data on the alien species and its weakness in an attempt to control it or get rid of it entirely. While Williams bought Corinth, he also bought Imito Labs, a company specialized in animal cloning. With everything in place, Williams would begin developing Project Selenite, where he trained astronauts and have them believe they were going to survey Tau Ceti F for the Andromeda to colonize it 6 months later. But not only did he deceive them, he made them sign agreements to be cloned, so when they got in their sleep pods, he scanned their brains to upload their memories and personalities onto cloned bodies so they could be sent out to die over and over in an attempt to analyze the alien species completely while going through trial and error. Williams would also clone himself but not tell the rest of the clones the truth to avoid the alien knowing about Earth. And because of this, Williams' clones sends info back to Earth, so because of the trial and error, new information is being passed through each time because new clone crews would be following behind once that clone crew is eliminated. They don't actually have an acronym to their name, which I find a bit odd, so they're just AEGIS. They're a secret government agency that controls and covers up any alien-related occurrence. There's no information as to when they were founded, but it's assumed it was founded during the House of Ashes timeline after the confirmed existence of vampires. During the Man of Medan timeline, they managed to get their hands on a bioweapon called Manchurian Gold, which was a hallucinogen created by Japan during World War II with the saliva of the vampires. But when they tried moving it from China to America among the SS Orang Medan, the chemicals leaked and caused hallucinations among the crew, which is what led to the mass murder spree. The ship and the bioweapon were then lost in the Pacific Ocean following that. So if you find the right answers in episode 7 and keep Williams alive, later on during episode 7, he will reveal the whole truth behind the space mission, and during the reveal, he mentions a mission in Iraq in 2003. House of Ashes took place in 2003, and to further prove the connection, while they're talking about the life form, we can see the members involved in the mission and they look pretty much identical to the crew that were out there in the vampire cave. To further add on again, the vampire fluid that they found, or X1172 to be exact, in one of the documents you find either naturally or getting collectibles, there's an email exchange from Sims to Mission Control raising concern about the return trip stasis fluid, and then Mission Control pretty much telling her to pipe down a little, bro. I have a lot of fun diving into the lore behind these games. I'm constantly mind blown when I discover something I didn't know and go down a rabbit hole finding more and more information, linking and connecting back to the game in some way. It's cool but ominous that AEGIS has played a part in almost all the Dark Pictures titles, so it makes me curious if they'll be involved in the next title, but from the teaser trailer it looks like we're going back in time, so that probably wouldn't make sense with the timeline of the narrative if that's the case. If you're as mind blown and hooked on the lore as I am and want more, let me know by leaving a like and subscribe if you're new, and leave in a comment if you have a theory or something of your own you'd like to share. I enjoyed discussing these things, but for now, that's going to do it for this video. You know what to do if you enjoyed, and I will see you legends in the next one. Peace.